Boris Johnson.
This interview you gave us.
It's a doozy. It's like a political thriller with a splash of soap opera.
Yeah.
We've got everything in here.
Oh, no.
Childhood secrets.
Yeah.
The making of that, iconic Boris persona.
Right.
And, of course, the Brexit roller coaster.
I mean, it's fascinating the way
Oh, absolutely.
his personal life and political decisions kind of seem to just feed off each other.
Totally.
And I think that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
Untangle it all.
Yeah.
Give you the man behind the headlines.
Absolutely.
The choices that shaped a nation.
Okay, so let's rewind all the way back to childhood.
Okay.
Johnson describes his childhood as paginating.
Paginating.
His word, not mine.
Right.
But, between the lines, you can spot some early turbulence.
Oh, yeah.
His mother struggles with OCD,
Yeah.
hospitalization when he was just 10.
Young years old.
Then the parents divorce a few years later.
Yeah. I mean, these are defining moments for anyone.
Of course.
But for Johnson, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
He talks about, dealing with these tough times by burying himself in schoolwork, almost like he was building a fortress of achievement around himself.
Right. And that fortress idea.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating when you think about his approach to politics.
Absolutely.
The workaholism, the reliance on humor to deflect criticism. It's like those childhood coping mechanisms.
Right.
They just evolved into his political style.
Exactly. It's not just about understanding Boris Johnson, the man.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how those formative experiences shaped Boris Johnson, the politician.
Totally.
And that leads us to the construction of his public image.
Yeah.
The Boris persona, as we're calling it.
Okay, so the humor.
Yeah.
The slightly bumbling charm.
Yeah.
Was that all a calculated act?
Well, he claims he's always been this way.
Right.
Full of energy. And that in politics, you've got to sugar the pill.
Sugar the pill.
To get people engaged, but it's hard not to wonder if there's a little bit more to it.
Absolutely.
He admits to a childhood horror of being dull.
Oh, wow.
I mean, imagine that pressure in a family where everyone was constantly trying to outwit each other.
Oh, constantly.
So it's almost like he honed his performance skills from a very young age.
Oh, from childhood.
Yeah.
And you see that performance carry over into his political career.
Absolutely.
He's acutely aware of the need to entertain.
Yeah.
He even compares his writing to digestive biscuits coated in chocolate. Solid wheat germ pabulum.
Interesting.
With a bit of sweetness to make it go down easier.
It makes you wonder, though, doesn't it?
It really does.
In today's media-saturated world, does personality trump policy?
That's the question.
Have we reached a point where voters prioritize entertainment over substance?
That's a really good question.
And if so, what does that say about the state of modern politics?
Right.
I don't know.
Now let's talk Brexit. Johnson was the poster boy for the Leave campaign.
Right.
But his interview, it paints a more nuanced picture.
It does.
He describes being really conflicted about the decision. He even wrote an unpublished article outlining the potential downsides.
Yeah.
Worries about Scotland, the influence of Russia, and the economic risks.
That's fascinating because that internal debate never really made it to the public stage.
It didn't.
The campaign was all about taking back control, doing things our own way.
Yeah.
The potential risks were just largely glossed over.
He justifies this by saying he was simply presenting the positive case.
Okay.
But it raises questions about leadership and responsibility.
Yeah.
Did he have a duty to present a more balanced view?
Right.
Acknowledging the potential downsides alongside the promised benefits.
Especially given his private admissions.
Right.
He reveals a rather explosive conversation with David Cameron.
Whoa. Okay.
The prime minister at the time.
Yeah.
Cameron apparently threatened to screw him over.
Oh, wow.
If he backed Leave.
Okay.
And even dangled the promise of a top cabinet position.
Oh, my God.
If he supported Remain.
Talk about political maneuvering.
Right.
It's a stark reminder that high-stakes decisions are often influenced by personal ambition and power dynamics.
Yes.
And that leads us to another interesting revelation.
Okay.
The lack of a concrete post-Brexit plan.
He admits there wasn't one.
There wasn't one.
He blames the ensuing chaos on the Cameron government. But his own lack of preparedness is very telling.
Yeah.
It points to a pattern
of
bold action without always considering the long-term consequences.
Right, but let's not forget public sentiment.
Yep.
Johnson highlights the overwhelming vote in favor of Brexit.
Yeah.
17.4 million people.
That's a lot of people.
Right.
It's huge.
He claims he felt this groundswell of support outside of London. He even acknowledges a different mood in the metropolis.
And That's a crucial point, right?
Yeah.
This wasn't just a political debate.
It wasn't.
It exposed a deep-seated divide between urban and rural communities.
Absolutely.
Between those who felt left behind by globalization and those who benefited from it.
So true.
And Johnson, whether by instinct or design, he tapped into that sense of alienation.
He did.
And he channeled it into a powerful political movement.
Okay, so the million-dollar question.
Here we go.
Does Boris Johnson regret Brexit? The answer is a firm no.
A firm no.
A firm no.
Wow.
He pushes back against negative economic data.
Does he?
Arguing that the UK has outgrown Germany since 2016.
Wow. So he's not shying away from it.
Not at all.
Okay.
But he struggles to articulate a clear trade-off. What exactly did the UK sacrifice for these supposed gains?
That's the question.
It raises doubts about the economic rationale behind the decision and whether the perceived benefits outweigh the costs.
It does make you wonder.
It really does.
Yeah.
He concedes that some businesses are finding it harder.
Okay.
And admits the transition has been unnecessarily bureaucratic.
Right.
But he remains convinced that the UK will ultimately be richer as a result of leaving the EU.
That's that unwavering optimism.
Right.
That almost unshakable belief in his own convictions.
Mr. Boris.
Right. Which defines him.
Yeah.
But it also reveals a potential blind spot, doesn't it?
Totally.
Is he truly willing to acknowledge the full extent of the challenges created by Brexit?
Yeah.
Or is he too focused on defending his legacy?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
He criticizes those who predicted economic doom pre-referendum, saying no one ever holds these people to account.
Right.
He points to low unemployment figures and a faster economic rebound compared to other G7 countries after the pandemic.
Okay.
As proof that things aren't so bad.
It's a classic Johnsonian tactic.
Right.
Deflect.
Yep.
Highlight the positives. And just downplay the negatives.
Downplay.
But it makes it really difficult to have an honest conversation about the true impact of his policies.
For sure.
And whether those supposed successes outweigh the very real challenges faced by many in the wake of Brexit.
Totally. And he doubles down on the need for freedom from EU regulations.
Okay.
Even citing the UK's successful vaccine rollout as proof that going it alone was the right decision.
Now, that's a claim that deserves closer scrutiny.
Yeah.
I mean, many experts argue that the vaccine success had more to do with pre-existing infrastructure and early investment in vaccine development than with Brexit itself.
Okay.
So it highlights the difficulty in separating the effects of Brexit from other factors at play. And that brings us to another defining moment.
Oh, yeah.
The pandemic.
Yeah.
You get this sense from the interview that he initially underestimated the threat.
Underestimated it.
Almost dismissing it as something that would just sort itself out.
He even mentions a call with Xi Jinping back in February 2020. He raised concerns about wet markets.
Yeah.
But admits the conversation is now hazy.
Hazy.
Imagine that the world is on the brink of a global pandemic.
Yeah.
And you're having a hazy chat with the leader of China.
It's a stark reminder of how little we knew in those early days.
Absolutely.
Leaders were operating with incomplete information.
Yeah.
And the scientific understanding was evolving so rapidly.
So rapidly.
It was a pressure cooker of uncertainty.
And speaking of uncertainty, Johnson now believes that the virus was almost certainly from a lab leak in Wuhan.
Really?
He speculates about scientists engineering these viruses and something going wrong.
It's a theory that has definitely gained some traction.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember, it's still just a theory.
Yeah.
There's no conclusive evidence.
Right.
And a lot of scientists still believe that a natural origin is more likely.
Sure.
So I think it's a good reminder to be cautious about jumping to conclusions, even when those conclusions are coming from someone like Boris Johnson.
He describes this moment of clarity, though, seeing the crisis unfold in Italy, especially the impact on the elderly, sent this wave of anxiety through him. He realized this wasn't just another SARS or bird flu.
Right.
This was something different.
Right. Something bigger. And that realization prompted action.
Yeah.
Though some argue it could have come sooner.
Right.
He defends the government's response, saying they followed scientific advice from SAGE, the UK's top scientific advisory body.
But let's be honest, the timeline suggests that the UK was slower to implement lockdowns compared to many European countries.
It does.
It raises questions about whether those delays cost lives and whether the government could have acted more decisively.
It's easy to judge in hindsight.
It is.
But it highlights the immense pressure that leaders were under, balancing public health concerns against economic and social repercussions.
Yeah, and then there's the public's reaction to the lockdowns.
Oh, right.
Which even Johnson admits surprised him.
Really?
He compares people's willingness to follow restrictions to detailed religious rituals.
Detailed religious ritual.
Almost a desperate plea for salvation in the face of an invisible enemy.
It speaks to that really deep-seated human need for order in the face of chaos.
Right.
When we're confronted with a threat like a pandemic, we just crave clear rules, even if they seem arbitrary or restrictive.
He even calls the tiered system they implemented later bonkers.
Bonkers.
Though he defends it in principle as an attempt to tailor restrictions to different regions.
I mean, those boundaries were always going to be messy.
But they were.
You can't just draw lines on a map and expect a virus to respect them.
Right.
And the public sense of fairness is bound to be tested.
For sure, it's clear the pandemic took a toll on Johnson, personally.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about lying awake at night, agonizing over rising death tolls.
Right.
And the weight of those life or death decisions.
I mean, behind the political maneuvering.
Yeah.
Behind the bluster and the bravado.
Yeah.
You see glimpses of a man grappling with the immense responsibility of leadership during a crisis.
It's true.
And that humanity is something we often forget about when we talk about politicians.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And to add to the personal strain, his mother passed away in September 2021.
Oh, wow.
Right in the thick of the pandemic fallout.
Yeah.
He describes it as a very, very tough moment.
Oh, I bet.
But you sense this deep sadness beneath those words.
It's a reminder that leaders, despite their public personas, are still human beings.
They are.
They experience grief, loss, uncertainty, just like the rest of us.
Okay, but we can't avoid the elephant in the room.
No.
Partygate. The scandal that, let's be honest, brought down his premiership. He expresses desperate regret for the events.
Does he?
And admits to mishandling the situation.
Yeah.
Especially that initial general apology.
That apology, he claims, inadvertently validated accusations, even those that turned out to be false.
Yeah.
It's a lesson in the importance of careful communication during a crisis.
Absolutely.
Especially when public trust is already hanging by a thread.
He tries to defend that infamous cheese and wine photo.
Oh, yeah.
Saying it was just staff having drinks outside after work, which was allowed at the time.
Right, but the optics were terrible. It's that classic do as I say, not as I do scenario.
Exactly.
That just drives people crazy.
Absolutely.
The public needs to see that the rules apply to everyone.
Yeah.
Especially those in power.
And then there's the birthday cake incident.
Oh, the cake.
He insists there was no cake.
No cake.
Even though pretty much everyone believes there was.
Right.
It just reinforces that perception of dishonesty.
Yeah.
Of being out of touch with reality.
Right. It doesn't matter if it was a slice of cake.
Exactly.
Or a full-blown rave.
Yeah.
The point is the rules were broken.
Yeah.
And the public felt betrayed.
He seems to regret those pathetic and groveling apologies.
Okay.
Arguing they made him seem more culpable than he actually was.
But that defensiveness only makes things worse.
Yeah.
The core issue is the violation of trust.
Yeah.
When those in power disregard the rules, they expect everyone else to follow.
Right.
It just creates this sense of cynicism and resentment.
Okay, moving away from the political firestorm for a moment.
Okay.
There's a lighter section where he's asked about the number of children he has.
Oh, right.
He eventually confirms he has 8.
8.
But you can almost sense him rolling his eyes.
I know.
At the public's fascination with his personal life.
It's interesting because he's so candid about other things.
Yeah.
But when it comes to certain personal details, he clams up.
He does.
Maybe it's a recognition that even public figures deserve some privacy.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a way of controlling the narrative.
And he denies a romantic relationship with Charlotte Owen, a former advisor who features prominently in his book.
Okay.
He calls her a very capable advisor and deflects further questions.
That denial, while understandable, is unlikely to stop the speculation.
It's not.
Especially given their close working relationship.
Right.
And the lack of clarity about their current connection.
For sure.
It raises questions about those blurred lines between the personal and the professional.
Right.
Especially for someone in Johnson's position.
Yeah. Okay, so what about the future?
The future, yeah.
Does Boris have any aspirations for a political comeback?
He plays coy.
He does.
Talking about a life of blameless rustic obscurity.
Oh, blameless rustic obscurity.
Filled with painting and countryside walks.
But then he throws in that line about only doing things if you genuinely think you can be useful.
It's like he's leaving the door open.
A little crack open.
Just a crack.
Waiting for the right moment to step back into the political arena.
And he refuses to answer a question.
Yeah.
About which relationship he lost.
Right.
In the pursuit of success. Saying he doesn't regard any rupture as final.
Wow.
He even points to his reconciliation with Michael Gove.
Oh, yeah.
His one-time rival.
One-time rival.
As evidence of his ability to mend broken fences.
But that refusal to acknowledge any permanent loss is telling.
It is.
It suggests a belief in redemption, a belief that even the most fractured relationships can be healed.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe,
it
hints at a desire to repair his own damaged reputation.
Right.
To rewrite the ending. Of his political story. And then he's asked about his preference for U.S. leadership.
Oh.
Trump or Kamala Harris.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right. Yeah. He tiptoes around the question.
Of course.
Saying all British prime ministers are constitutionally obliged to be friendly with whoever's in the White House.
Yeah.
But he does let slip this subtle nod to Trump.
Does he?
Suggesting that he brought a certain sense of American strength and purpose
to
foreign policy.
That's so interesting.
It's a tiny glimpse into Johnson's worldview.
I know. It makes you wonder.
It does.
How he navigated those global relationships.
Behind closed doors? Was he a hard-nosed negotiator?
Right.
A master of persuasion?
Yeah.
A bit of both.
That's the thing with Boris Johnson.
Right.
He's a master of presenting a carefully crafted public persona.
Yes.
But you're never quite sure what's going on beneath the surface.
He's charming.
Yeah.
Witty. Undeniably intelligent.
Yes.
But also prone to gaffes.
Yeah.
Evasiveness.
In those moments.
In these moments.
Where it seems like the rules just don't apply to him.
It's a complicated picture, to say the least.
It really is.
So what's the takeaway from all this?
Yeah, what do we learn about Boris Johnson?
The man, the politician, the myth.
The myth, right?
Right.
His story, I think, is a cautionary tale.
Okay.
About ambition. The seductive allure of power.
Yeah.
And the risks of prioritizing those short-term gains over long-term consequences.
It's a reminder that even the most charismatic leaders are fallible. Their decisions have real-world consequences.
They do.
And that pursuit of power often comes at a personal cost.
Absolutely. But it's also a story of resilience.
Yeah.
Bouncing back from setbacks.
Yeah.
This relentless optimism.
Right.
That while sometimes misplaced, can be incredibly powerful.
We've dissected his childhood, explored the construction of his public persona, delved into the triumphs and the failures that defined his time in office.
It's all in there.
We've seen the man behind the curtain, the flaws and contradictions, the moments of brilliance and the moments of recklessness.
It's quite the mix.
It really is. But ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide what we make of Boris Johnson and his legacy.
Exactly. And that's what we hope you'll do.
That's it.
Take what you've learned from this deep dive.
Yeah.
Consider the multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
And form your own conclusions.
Because history is never truly settled.
Never.
There's always more to learn.
Yeah.
More questions to ask.
Always more questions.
And more nuanced interpretations to uncover.
Absolutely.
So keep digging.
Keep digging.
Keep questioning.
Question everything.
And keep that curiosity alive.
Yes.
That's what makes these deep dives so rewarding.
I know.
The journey of discovery.
It is.
The piecing together of the puzzle.
Right.
The constant search for understanding.
Until next time.
Till next time.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
And keep those critical thinking skills sharp.